Welcome to the Deeper Into Movies podcast. My name is Stephen T. Hanley. I'm the founder and lead curator of Deeper Into Movies. We are a pop-up cinema based in London and New York. Today on the podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by writer and musician Willy Vlautin. Willy was the front man of the alt-country outfit Richmond Fontaine for 20 years. He is the author of real modern classics, The Motel Life, North Line, Lean on Pete. He has a new book out, The Horse, about a aging musician. And I've been a fan of him for so long. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, when I was starting out writing and interviewing people, I told Willy I had the chance to interview Harry Dean Stanton. Let me backtrack. I met Willy at a book signing and we were talking about movies, and I said I might be interviewing Harry Dean Stanton next week. And he got so excited, and he just had this earnest look in his eye that was really happy for me. And it struck something inside me, and I fixed up and just was working harder and more professional in finding home for things. And I didn't want to disappoint Willy's for some reason. I didn't want to mess up my chance with Harry Dean Stanton. And I'm not sure any of this makes sense, but for me, it was a key moment in me moving ahead, becoming a grown-up, starting deeper into movies. And I just owe a lot to that brief conversation we had. That really resonated with me. And ever since then, I've continued to love Willy's books, but after that meeting, he held a really special place for me. And so I was so stoked to get a chance to meet him. We were in the Faber and Faber offices in London, which was incredible. And here is me and the great Willy Vlautin.
How you doing?
How you doing, Steven?
Steven. I feel like we've met.
Yeah, we have.
We have. Yeah.
We met at... When was it? When The Free came out?
Ah, man, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had an interesting encounter. I was telling you I was just about to interview Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
And you got really excited.
Sure. Was Harry Dean cool?
It was so amazing. It was so amazing because he was like, Stephen Hanley, and he was like, you're Irish. And I was like, yeah. And he just broke into a song. He broke into this Dubliner song just down the phone to me.
Wow.
For like a minute. And then was like, what's the next question? And it was amazing. It was
wow, because he was notoriously that he could be pretty rough.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of knew he'd give you these quizzical answers and stuff. And I remember I asked him about, I don't know, looking back at his life and career, and he just quoted this Shakespeare piece to me. But I think my earnestness and excitement kind of maybe snapped him out of a little bit. I'm not saying I
and you probably knew a lot more about him than most people.
I think he could tell I was coming from an earnest fan point of view, he was a lot more warmer than
that makes sense.
So yeah, that's how we met. I was like, Willy really sent me on a
I
course.
remember meeting you, but I just couldn't. God, that's 10 years ago or something.
Yeah,
like that,
that's right. Because I've been doing the film programming for like 8 years, so that's about right. So I always ask people, what kind of teenager were you?
Teenager.
Yeah.
Man, I just tried to get along. Yeah. I wasn't rebellious. I went to school. I never missed school. I just kept my head down, really. I listened to a lot of records, played a lot of guitar, watched a lot of movies, read a fair amount of books, But I never, my childhood was never, there was nothing to rebel against. My mom worked, the same job for 30 years and was trying to make sure me and my brother were okay. So I never had anything to rebel against. You were just grateful that she was trying so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried hard too.
What were you listening to? What were the records that really had a impact
Oh
on
man, like everybody, I listen to a ton of stuff from Rush to Yes to Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin, The Who, and then I discovered the Pogues and the Jam and the Clash, and then I discovered X, the Los Lobos. The Blasters, Green on Red, Rank and File, that era of kind of cowpunk stuff when I was 13 or 14, and that kind of changed the way I thought about music. So I listened to anything and everything.
And you went to Prague. That was interesting.
My brother was into it. My brother's 4 years older. I mean...
Oh, you had the cool older brother.
Yeah, and he
Same.
could shake... his stereo was so loud it could shake our house. And he had a water bed. And he was gone a lot, and so I had
Did you sneak in and do the browsing through the records?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And then the thing I did with him, I feel bad, but I helped when he was 17. I was 13, and I helped him move his records into his car because he was moving out.
Did you steal some?
Oh yeah, because you figure he'll be by the time he unpacks his records, he was 1,000 miles away.
Oh my God.
So he couldn't beat me up.
Right.
So I stole his Springsteen records.
Oh, cool.
I stole his Rush records and his Yes records. Yeah.
My friend runs Secretly Canadian.
Yeah.
And I said I want to do a video tribute to Jason Molina. And I went through.
Yeah, sure.
I said, let's do 10 performances, almost like a greatest hits compilation that spans his career. And then he was saying, this is great. Should we do a Q&A or stuff afterwards? And I was like, I can definitely put together a fan portrait of what I think spans his career, but I don't want to speak on his behalf or talk about his music and stuff. And he said, that's true. I remember I went to Yestival and they had, it was a Yes festival for the fans.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it just went on for like 8 hours of people saying, no. There was 2 bass solos in this track and stuff. And he was like, it's got absolutely crazy.
That
So
is
he
crazy,
said,
man.
so yeah, no Yestival.
Yeah, no, Yes, I liked Yes. They got bad. They got weird pretty fast.
Yeah.
But they have when you're 13.
I still love the Fragile record. I think
Fragile, Close to the Edge.
Yeah.
I mean, those are great records.
Yeah. What is your favorite Springsteen album or era?
When up until Born in the USA, I think really meant a lot to me. The early, all of them, from Darkness Edge Town, probably The Rivers probably holds up as one of my all-time favorites of his. Wild the Innocent, the East Street Shuffle, Born to Run. I mean, I liked them all. I really bought into it because I understood, at least I felt that there was a real darkness in him.
Yes.
And I mean, I think as he's gotten older and he's written about it, but I think as a kid I felt it because I felt the same.
Yeah,
I felt that same darkness, and I could feel it inside him. What he had is he's got a swagger to him, and he's got a kind of a carefree confidence alongside the darkness. And I think, like, as I grew up, I just had the darkness. I didn't have the swagger.
Just the melancholy, and
I just had the melancholy.
Yeah.
So I related to that a lot with Springsteen. So I like Springsteen. Tom Waits was a big guy for me as well, and the Pogues were a big band for me as a kid.
I was late into Springsteen. I was so. I know I get embarrassed when I look back and I was such an arsehole. I'm like, fuck that classic rock guy.
Well,
and,
sure. I mean, it's hard. It's hard when he did Born in the USA and all of a sudden he's buff and he looks like all the guys that.
I think that album cover I always thought was so douchey, and then later on you're like, when you hear the actual meaning of Born in the USA,
yeah.
you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then when I was, and then I did a whole reassessment, and I was like, I get it. This is amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I got to be honest. When he got all buff and Born in the USA,
Yeah.
because then all the kind of meathead guys that would try to kill you,
Yeah.
they suddenly liked Springsteen.
Yeah.
And he became like this macho guy.
Yeah.
And he's made so many good records after that. And the guy's brilliant, obviously. But my heart is with those earlier records.
Yeah. I think it was when I was in that real stubborn growing up listening to grunge and punk and sub pop and stuff. And like, Bruce doesn't press his own 7 inches and send them out to his fans. I agree. You do a total reassessment. Like, this guy's fucking amazing. And
he's a classic songwriter. I mean, that's the thing with Tom Waits too. Is like the guy's just a classic songwriter. He's as good as any songwriter ever. So those guys were really.
What was your
big.
favorite Waits era?
I mean, it's interesting because I did, like, Swordfish Trombones is probably my favorite record of his. But I love them all, really. I love them all. I mean, I do love, like, the bootlegs. I have a lot of bootlegs pre-Swordfish Trombones when he was still kind of like the beatnik, troubadour, jazzy guy. Mm-hmm. And I love all that stuff. Like, even the well-known bootleg, Cold Beer on a Hot Night, live from Australia. That's amazing. That's one of the best bootlegs I've ever heard. So I've always been a fan all the way through because he writes classic ballads. He writes like the most romantic, big ballads, and then with Swordfish, he got kind of, avant-garde, I guess is what you'd say, and he taught me about that, and I mean those songs. But you strip away a lot of those songs, and they're just beautiful ballads, or not all of them, but 2 or 3 of them.
I'm a big defender of Closing Time. I think it's such a nice record.
It's a beautiful. A lot of people that's their favorite before his voice started getting all rough.
Yeah,
but a Small Change.
That's such a tough album cover,
and it's a brilliant record. It's a brilliant record. He was a huge hero of mine. Yeah, songwriting wise. And like you, I loved, all the indie rock stuff growing up too, like the Replacements and Husker Du. All that stuff from that era meant a lot to me. The Replacements were a big band for me when I was in high school as well. Husker Du really was. Like I said, X, the Blasters, all that LA kind of cowpunky stuff I loved as well.
How are you discovering stuff in pre-internet era?
My brother lived in Los Angeles.
Right.
So my brother would send me home tapes of the radio stations. And then he'd send me, like, Rank and File was like a cowpunk band, small-time kind of cowpunk band. And X and, that whole LA scene, Green on Red. And Dream Syndicate, and he just started sending me it. And then I'd go visit him, and we'd go record shopping, And so that's how I found out about all this stuff. And then my dad went to England and bought me The Gift by The Jam and Rum Sodomy the Lash by the Pogues. And they became, both those bands I really loved. And the Pogues have been pals, like, in my heart for years,
Did you see Shane's funeral?
On YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Stunning.
Yeah, man.
It was so beautiful.
I mean, I always selfishly wish after he wrote "If I Should Fall from the Grace of God," I wish they would have sequestered him and made him kind of keep his shit together, so we could have gotten a few more good records out of him. But I mean, he wrote some beautiful, beautiful tunes, man. But I wish he could have written a few more, just selfishly, for me.
Yeah, no, he really fucked himself up beyond repair.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good example too. To, like, you watch those dudes that party really hard when you're coming up, and I was always, I was always pragmatic about that stuff. I'd seen, all you have to do is see a few drug movies.
Yeah,
and and like in school they showed you Scared Straight, like if you screw up, you're going to go to prison, and prison is like this. And I was like, you know something, I'll just stick to booze, and booze has nearly done me in. But, I never hit it as hard as those guys.
No, I remember going back to Ireland and my friend taking me out, and one of their friends was just an absolute drunk and a fuck up. And they were like, yeah, he's really on a big Shane MacGowan tip. And I was like, even his teeth are fucked. And they're like, no, he's completely gone method into this romantic bohemian. Like, I swear he literally had a copy of like Post Office Bukowski in his pocket and stuff.
Yeah, man, I know. I mean, I grew up with guys like that, and you always forget like the thing that you could say about Bukowski is, I mean, he was a workhorse. He wrote all the time.
Yeah,
and I would assume he didn't drink as much as he really did, or he was one of those guys that just has a liver of steel, because he continuously produced.
Yeah.
So writing was more important, where I think you get into trouble is you still have to partying. Really, all it gets you is pain.
Yeah.
And so if you can, and that's good, that you can write off that, but you still gotta write. You still gotta work. And that's like, I knew this kid I grew up with, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to do heroin all summer and write." And even as a kid, even in my 20s, I was like, well, you either do heroin or you're going to write, but you can't really,
you're not going to become Hubert Selby Jr. through the
You got
through the needle.
Those guys, if Bukowski was a teetotaler Mormon, but still wrote, he would write beautiful Mormon stories.
Yeah.
He's just a writer.
Yeah.
So that's a sad thing. And I mean, every young musician falls prey to that, which is, if you live hard, you'll become a good writer. And in one way it's true, because, if you live hard, it brings a lot of pain and chaos to your life, and you can write about that stuff, but you still have to get up in the morning and do the work, which is right.
Yeah, it will deliver the material on some level, but you still got to have the chops.
You got to have the chops, and that's why a lot of those guys burn out in their late 20s, or like MacGowan later on. It's because your body just can't keep doing that. You can't punish yourself that much and keep writing well.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Mubi. Mubi is a creator streaming platform bringing you the best in cinema. I've been a Mubi subscriber for years, and I love doing this. I get to dig into the Mubi UK platform and give you 3 of my favorite recommendations. Okay, let's go. We've been talking about Wim Wenders a lot this episode, so obviously I'm picking Perfect Days, his new movie, which I have not seen yet, but I think my friend put it best. She watched this movie recently and just said it's really great to watch a movie that reminds you that life and the world isn't wall-to-wall hell and nightmare. So that's my number 1 choice. Okay, another one I've not seen. France by Bruno Dumont. All I know about this one is John Waters said it was incredible. It's starring the beguiling Leah Seydoux, and it's meant to be like a real hilarious takedown of media culture. That's what we need. Okay, that's my number 2, and I'm going to try and find something I've actually seen for my 3rd one. Give me a second. Okay, A Single Man, directed by Tom Ford. Yep, the famed fashion designer, starring Colin Firth, his best performance to date. And I was so cynical of this movie when it came out. I was such a douche. I was like, oh, it's a fashion designer. I'm sure it's going to look pretty. I'm sure it's going to be style over content. And then I watched it and it was emotionally devastating and just so haunting. So that is my third choice. Here's the good bit. You can watch all these movies and more for free. Just go to mubi.com/deeper into movies for 30 days of great cinema, absolutely free. Watch my free recommendations and dig into more. And what kind of movies were you watching?
I mean, as a kid, I just watched whatever was in our local theaters. But I was a big movie buff. I mean, I always liked movies a lot. So, I mean, I guess I'm that classic guy that, I never lived with my dad, and my dad would just take you to movies once in a while. And he'd always take you to movies that he wanted to go see. So, by 8 or 9, I'm seeing like Deer Hunter.
Wow.
Yeah. So, my dad wasn't much of a dad, but he showed me some really gnarly movies at a young age that I think, stay with you. That tail end of the 70s movies. But I always liked movies. It wasn't until I was, maybe 18, 19 that I started seeing more like foreign movies or going to art house cinema. But before that, I just went to whatever was showing. But I was always a big movie guy. And the Harry Dean back to when we were talking Harry Dean, I loved Harry Dean in Paris, Texas, and Repo Man. Both those movies meant a lot to me. Repo Man is still one of my, my band, Richmond Fontaine. We could quote most of that movie, and we did all the time. And then Paris, Texas, I just, I've always been a Sam Shepard fan, and to have Harry Dean and with saying the words of Sam Shepard, it was amazing. And the landscape.
This is the official Paris, Texas cap.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man, you're right. So you're a Paris, Texas guy too, huh?
Yeah, favorite movie.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of corny. We did a reproduction of Harry's hat, but I was like, this is awful. That's a call. I still need it. I can't resist.
But the scene in Paris, Texas, the soliloquy almost that Harry Dean does in the strip, the peep show room.
Yeah, 2 takes is all he did.
Brilliant, man.
Yeah,
and the record that has it.
Yeah, the Raikuda soundtrack. Yeah, incredible,
man, incredible, man. I love
I can't believe he did it in 2 takes. He got pissed off the first time that he wasn't hitting the right emotion.
Yeah,
second take. That's it.
Brilliant, man. I mean, if all you knew of that movie is that, because that's like the most powerful thing on jealousy.
Yeah. And it's a crazy story. It's almost, I think, in the wrong hands, that could have been almost kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Almost with the cowbell and things like. But it just,
the way
he sells it so it's so haunting.
You know what's interesting is they're in San Francisco. There's City Lights Books.
Yeah.
Across the street is. Oh, damn, man. Costa. It was like a old Italian cafe. And in the back room, there's a secret room, or not really a secret, but a side room, which was like a card room for guys who played. And women, Wenders and Sam Shepard supposedly wrote a lot of Paris, Texas back in that room. And there's a huge poster of Paris, Texas.
No way.
And the owner was a book lover. She sold it, and but I met her, and she told me that she could hear them arguing and
wow,
and going over the script, and it was amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What did you want to be when you were a teenager? What were you thinking of, being a musician or a writer or?
I mean, I liked being in a band. I don't think I knew. I think I was just, I wanted to be in a band with a van.
Yeah. But
I didn't have any aspirations. I didn't know. I didn't want or even think about like being a rock star or anything like that. Like I didn't think that way. I think I wanted to be in a small time band that drove around in a van. Other than that, I think I just wanted to survive, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have any big aspirations, that's for sure. I mean, I was a workhorse.
Yeah.
I worked hard at my thing, but I never thought I would amount to much. I mean, I think that's part of the problem, or that's why I write about what I write. I think I always thought I would end up a bum anyway. So.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Even, how do you feel about...
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, now it's easier.
Do you give yourself a break?
Yeah, I give myself.
Okay, good.
But back then I didn't. Back then I was just hurting, I guess. I don't know what I was. I was probably just hurting.
That's so fun. I've never met anyone who said my aspirations to be in a small band. Even then, you kind of.
I just didn't think. Yeah, I was pretty pragmatic. I mean,
right,
I knew what I was interested in. I knew my voice, and I had no desire to be in front of people. The thing I forgot about being in a band is like you're in front of people. You're supposed to be putting on a show.
Yeah.
Like some variation of Springsteen to Iggy or Julie Andrews or whatever. Yeah. And I never thought of that stuff, man. I just thought of, I just liked writing songs and I wanted to be in a little band. So I wasn't the smartest guy at it. And, and obviously I'm not a brilliant showman by any stretch of the imagination, but I think I just wanted to kind of plant my flag with artists,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was watching the 4-part Bon Jovi documentary.
Yeah.
That had come on, and it was so funny. They said that they somehow got a spot opening up at Madison Square Garden, and they're like, "Well, let's fucking go. This is the big leagues." And their manager tried to politely say to them, "You've done about 20 shows. You can't. You need a certain presence and swagger to really hold the crowd in this type of stage. This isn't, the Troubadours. I mean, this is a fucking stadium. Like Springsteen can do it for a reason, that he can hold your attention for 3 hours and just slowly stack the heat.
Yeah, he's been doing it for his life.
Yeah, and they just bombed. They were like, "You're right. We definitely haven't." It was humbling, but they're like, "We haven't got what it takes yet to blow up a stadium and keep the crowd hooked." And I think even they were like, "Give it to him, Richie," and he went to do his like a crazy Van Halen solo, and his guitar was turned down, and it was such a. Yeah. So they were trying to do the big rock moments, but they were just fucking up.
Yeah, but I mean, I never even thought about stuff like that. So I mean, I was always just wanted to be in a cow punk band.
Yeah,
that played for 50 people or something. I never thought of, nor did I think I really ever want anything bigger than that. To be honest, I mean, for Richmond Fontaine, I wish I would have written catchier songs so the band made so that I could have gotten those guys more money. We could have stayed in nicer places, but that's all just for the guys. For me personally, I never wanted to, I don't have the personality for it, nor do I really like the idea of rock stars, so I had no interest in it really.
What kept you in it? Well, you guys were 20 years?
23, I think. Well, I mean, we really had a good time. We were buddies. We didn't tour as hard as most bands. And we were friends and we made what we thought at the time were cool records. So for us, it was just making records and having an adventure. I think that was the main thing. But I don't think any of us, I mean, the guys in my band were really smart. I don't think they ever thought for a second that I was going to, lead them to rock stardom.
Yeah.
I think they just thought we were what we were, which is kind of a weird cowpunky band that had, some darkness to it and some quirks to it. And they were nice enough to go along with it, So I was just grateful and, guilt-ridden that we weren't doing better,
Really? Did you beat yourself up about? Do you feel
Sure, man. I wrote the song, so yeah, I feel really. At the time I felt really guilty, because I was writing the kind of songs I liked, But I wasn't thinking, I wasn't thinking about like the Bon Jovi stuff or like, hey, we should write a catchier song. So, I just didn't come from that, and I wasn't interested in that. But for the guys, I wish we would have gotten famous so those guys would have made some money. Me personally, I don't care. But for those guys, sure, they were my pals. You don't want to let your friends down.
But I'm sure they weren't hard on you or expecting.
No, they're the greatest guys.
Like,
no, they knew.
Where's Dancing in the Dark? Well,
yeah, they knew what they were getting into. Sure.
Yeah.
But they were also they're just great. They were really great guys. We had a really fun run.
How much of that is in your new book from your experiences of that?
Little bits. I mean, the new book's really, about the life of a old school kind of journeyman casino musician, but he is a songwriter. But yeah, there's a little bit of that in there, sure. Yeah, I threw some old Fontaine stories in there once in a while. Yeah, sure.
It's a weird thing. My friend just was sound technician for a tour, and he was just talking about over traveling and being away from home, but the downtime between the sound check, the setting up, to going on stage,
and then you got to wait till
it's fucking crazy.
Then you're selling merch afterwards.
Yeah,
and then you get drunk afterwards, and then you got to load all your stuff in the van, and then you go back to find the little hotel you're at. Yeah, you waste a lot of time. I mean, that's the one thing I like about writing fiction is it's all work.
Yeah,
like you just grind. You just get
Well, that 90-minute high when it's happening, and then like, all right, we're done again.
Well, yeah, and then it's all logistics. It's just like cramming all your stuff in the van, and then your van's usually like overweighted and not that safe, and then you're staying. For Fontaine, we stayed a lot of years just 4 guys in one room, and then we got to be 2 guys in one room. So yeah, but we didn't tour as much as most bands. But yeah, the amount of wasting time and being in a band is a strain. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be especially in a small time band.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to be up for the ride of it.
Yeah.
And we were. I mean, we were up. We were hellraisers. And so we just had a good time, and we got to travel and see things we'd normally never see, and we, as Tom Waits would say, we got drunk in foreign lands, So we had a lot of fun. So I liked it. I'm comfortable with wasting that much time, I guess, because you can just read novels.
Yeah.
So it's cool. So I didn't mind it. But you waste a lot of time being in a band, and you're right. Your home life falls apart the longer you're away from home.
And when did the novel call to you?
I mean, I was writing them by 18, 19, just for fun, just to kill time. And I liked it. And you're not bothering anybody, shit. You're in a bad band as a kid like I was. You're bothering people. You're bothering your mom. When I lived at home, I was always bothering her. You're bothering your neighbors. When you get roommates, you're bothering your roommates with your band, just like the noise of it, and always playing guitar. And, I found that, just sitting in a corner or going to the library and working on a novel, you don't bother anybody and no one's pissed at you. So I loved it. I love the work ethic of it. I loved it. I loved it all, man.
Talk to me about the work ethic. What is your process or
I don't really have. I mean, it's just novels just take forever. So you just have to either do it or don't. So I like doing it. I mean, it's fun, but you have to put in the hours. So I'll write all day. I mean, not all day, but I'll waste every day trying to write because it's my favorite thing to do. It's just life gets in your way. I got horses and I got my band and stuff, so I can't write every day. But I like it. So it's never, I don't have like I have to write, 1,000 words today or whatever. I like doing it, and I don't put pressure on myself of how much to put out. I mean,
what's your process? Do you outline heavily, or do you?
I can tell you before I start a book, I can kind of tell you what it's going to be about, and I can tell you the big things in it, and then I don't know any of the little stuff in it. And then I just edit. I write a first draft in 6 months or so, and then I spend 3 years editing. So I tinker a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not that. My first drafts are really pretty rough, so I spend all my time tinkering, and editing. That's all my only gift, I think, really, is perseverance and editing. Eventually, you make the wrong choice 1,000 times, but maybe the 1,001 time you make the right choice, and all you need to do in a book is make the right choice once.
How'd you know when it's done?
Oh man, I call it cheating. I start cheating on it with another idea,
right?
Or I'll start writing something else, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night not worried about that book. I'll start worrying about some other book, and I go, "Oh man, that means this book's almost done." Yeah.
Okay, so your gut tells you when it's...
Yeah, gut. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to go off your gut because you're just by yourself.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to trust your gut, So I do, just because you'd go nuts if you didn't.
And who are your writing guys? A
guy I think you would really like is Barry Gifford.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've read his Havana trilogy. Is it?
Yeah. So he wrote Wild at Heart and helped write Lost Highway.
And Am I going to say this
right?
Durango?
Yeah.
That's a crazy book.
That's
a wild fucking movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that only came out recently, fully uncut.
Yeah. I mean, I know there was weird problems with that movie, distribution wise. Barry, I'm friends with Barry. He told me there was like some weird business issues with it. That kept that movie from being more well known. But he's amazing, and I always loved him. I loved him, and he turned, and the thing he did is so interesting. Is when he was a kid, he read, the Jim Thompson, Charles Willeford, David Goodis, and they were all out of print. These are like kind of psychologically damaged noir writers. And then when he was, I don't know how old he was, maybe 30-ish, he started Black Lizard Press, and they reissued Jim Thompson, David Goodis, Charles Willeford, and a handful of others, Charles Williams. But those guys, that resurgence of Jim Thompson is because of
really?
Barry. Yeah. And Barry's a really amazing guy, man. I mean, he's done so many cool different things. The list goes on of the amazing things he's done and people he's helped, and he's been a really good friend to me. But yeah, I love his stuff. Yeah. How was
it getting published? What was your journey from manuscript to?
I mean, I had it lucky, my band was doing good at the time. And I'd written a few novels, and I was doing more interviews with journalists that, and a lot of journalists are writing novels as well.
Yeah.
And I met a journalist, and he just said, I bet you write novels, huh? And I said, how did you know? And he goes, well, I mean, you write stories in your songs. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, let me introduce you to my agent. And he did. And I still work with her. That was between 20 and 22 years ago. And that's how. So I did. I got really lucky. I mean, because writing's a really lonely endeavor, and to get published, but it wasn't for me. I liked writing, and I never showed anybody my books. I didn't really care about it. I was too scared to see if I could get them published, because I liked making them, and I didn't want anybody to tell me I was bad at it. So I just never showed anybody. And then I showed Faber and Faber the Motel Life, and they bought it. And so I got really lucky, man. So
yeah, what a great home.
Yeah, oh Jesus, yeah,
incredible.
Man, they're fabulous. It was just luck. It's pretty lucky, but in a weird sort of way, it was my band, beating our head against the wall for so many years, gave me the gift of being able to get published. So I owe my life of publishing books to Richmond Fontaine, really.
Donna Tartt's a fan of your work.
I think so. I don't know her.
That's incredible.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, Secret History, The Goldfinch, they're amazing books. I mean, she spends 10 years. That's crazy. Each book takes her about 10 years.
Yeah, she's total
That's amazing, man. Like that you would spend 10 years on one project.
I suppose that when you get to... Well, I know Bryson Ellis was pals with her and basically, similar to what you were saying, just like cut through the crowd and just said, let me introduce you to my publisher.
They went to the same college.
Bennington.
Yeah, there was that big article just recently.
That was super interesting.
It was interesting. I'd be it's a scary thing. Like, like just in general, like if people commenting on you 30 years ago, that'd be rough.
Terrible. Yeah. It was very salacious.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sad thing about like your past should be, right. Like if that's hard, it's hard to do. You know what I mean?
If my high school friends were bringing up the stupid fucking shit I did and said, or my God,
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't that crazy, but I was definitely a dumbass.
Well, I mean, I still, I wasn't much. I mean, I've been, because of this tour, I've been thinking a lot about being in a touring band.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about the life of a musician. And I've never talked about or thought much about my life as a touring musician. And just the craziness and the hijinks, I guess, and the hell raising that we did for 20 years. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And really fun. But yeah, you don't want anybody to remember how drunk you were on a Tuesday night in Madison, Wisconsin,
Do you ever want to make a movie? Do you want to?
I don't have the confidence. I don't have the confidence to argue my ideas with half a dozen really intelligent people that have money. I just don't think I'm cut out for it. I mean, I love movies.
Yeah.
But I don't have the temperament for it. I just don't. I think they beat me up too much. But that being said, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan.
You got super lucky. You've had killer adaptations for.
Yeah, I've had, and they're making the Night Always Comes right now.
No, really? Who's directing that?
A guy named Ben Karen.
Oh, I don't know.
He's a British guy.
Oh, right.
So I don't know, but again, even in that experience, I could tell, you're arguing, you're not arguing, you're trying to get your point across to a bunch of people that have different ideas of things, different motivations, and bigger egos. Yeah. And I think you have to, if you're going to make movies, you have to go into it knowing exactly what you want.
Go into war, yeah.
Well, yeah, or just like Andrew Haig, who just knew what he wanted.
Oh, I'm friends with him. He's
a great guy, man.
So sweet.
But he's sweet and level, but he gets what he wants.
Yeah.
Like he's a smart guy because he knows what he wants.
He is. When I spoke to him when Lean on Pete came out, I said that movie feels like a miracle. That movie, to do your adaptation as it should be served, and I kind of it just felt like one of those down to 70s movies that never gets made anymore. And I was like,
I mean, those are my favorite.
Yeah.
Sorcerer, the freaking movie.
Oh my God, that movie's crazy. So good.
It's so good. I just saw it because I have the Criterion channel.
Yeah.
Jesus, man. It's a genius movie. And I mean, the title, that was a horrible title, I think. Because you keep thinking Sorcerer, you just think it's going to be sci-fi.
I used to get that confused with Excalibur.
Yeah, I know. Excalibur's a great movie too.
Yeah, but I was like, this isn't a kind of...
Yeah, they blew it with that. And I guess it opened the same weekend as Star Wars.
Yeah. No, he really... everyone was saying... I'm a big Roy Schneider fan, but everyone was saying
I've struggled with him, man.
I like him, but everyone was saying if it was Al Pacino or De Niro or a bigger talent, that movie would have done different. But it's incredible because it's got
it has grit without acting like it's
Yeah.
gritty. It's really gnarly.
and that first 20 minutes where they're setting up each character.
Yeah,
And
that's
I,
great,
I,
too.
I love when I'm watching an old movie like that and I'm thinking the fucking balls just to have 20 minutes where you're really not quite sure what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
But you know you're in great hands and it is going to slowly come together.
And it does, and then the scenes where I forget if they're in Honduras or Costa Rica or wherever they are, but like the grittiness,
Yeah.
that felt real.
And driving through that bridge,
Yeah.
it's just so stressful.
They spent like millions of dollars on that one thing.
And that weird Tangerine Dream score and stuff.
It's a weird score, yeah.
Yeah, again.
that's cool. I haven't ever talked to anybody about it. It's cool.
Yeah. He's so. And if you go on YouTube, any of William Friedkin's interviews are hilarious.
Oh, about that?
Everything. He just gives zero fucks. He's got no filter. And he's really, really funny. Great raconteur. Yeah. Kind of self-deprecating, but kind of rude as well. I love him. He was one of the best.
I don't know that many movies. Like he did the French Connection, right?
He did French Connection. He did To Live and Die in LA.
You can't. I tried to rent that. You can't rent it right now.
No,
you can't stream it.
No, it fell into MGM's hands, which got bought by
you
fucking.
know all this stuff.
Yeah, McGee, this is my life.
I know, but it's cool.
No, it fell into MGM and that got bought by Amazon. So this is why when people say to me, like, why have you still got your Blu-rays? And I was like, because the hellscape of distribution and what people deem important or what deserves to go on streaming and stuff, it's crazy. Like, you can't, I always say Steve Buscemi's Trees Lounge
that's a brilliant movie.
Non-available.
Really?
It's hardly anywhere. It never gets screened. And I'm like, that's a perfect movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, that movie meant a lot to me. Just like, especially the end where they all say they're going to go visit their drinking buddy and they never do. But you know, that idea, like when push comes to shove, you're like, man, there's always another drinking buddy. I'll go tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll go tomorrow. Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, I love that movie a lot. That's cool. We got similar tastes.
I always felt we were.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's when I first met you, I was like, this guy will be stoked about Harry Dean Stanton meeting Harry Stanton.
Man. I mean, I used to say I wished Harry Dean Stanton was my real dad. You know, this is how messed up I was. I took Harry Dean and Repo Man, like that guy. I tried to be a Repo Man because of that movie, because I wanted to be around Harry Dean Stanton. I wrote a novel where I was I worked on a used car lot in this novel. And the guy was basically Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, I bought into that stuff so hard that I literally hooked up with this repo guy. And he says, so you steal a lot of cars as a kid? And I said, no, man, I don't really steal cars. And he goes, what about violence, man? You tough guy? You like fighting? I mean, if you had to get in a fight, you could handle yourself, right? And you're like, man, no, man, I don't really like violence, you know. And he looks at me and he pulls up his leg and he shows me like where he'd been shot in the calf.
Yeah.
And he goes, how about guns? What's your take on guns? And he goes, and I told him, man, I hate guns. And he's like, well, why the fuck you want to be a repo man? You know, And I was like, because I want to live in a movie with Harry Dean Stanton. I didn't tell him that.
You're like, I want a UFO flying car.
Well, I just want to drive around and drink with Harry Dean Stanton in a car and have him give me bad advice. So yeah, I didn't, I wasn't cut out for the repo life, you know, but it shows you how foolish I was. I really, wanted to live inside that movie, man.
Boom. That was me and the great, the wonderful Willy Vlautin. Willy's new book is out right now, published by Faber and Faber. And if you want to dig in, go to The Motel Life, his first book. I guarantee you it's so tender and dark and great. And that's it from me. Thanks to Joshua Eustace, aka Telefon Tel Aviv, for my beautiful music. Thanks to you guys for listening. And as I've always got to say, if you enjoy the pod, please like and subscribe. I always want to keep the pod free, all episodes free, no Patreon, etc. And like and subscribing really helps, and getting us more listeners and a bigger audience. And the bigger the pod gets, the bigger the guests get. And it just makes life easier. Okay, on that note, thank you for listening, and we will speak soon.